Hey, it's October. What did I promise back a few months ago? Right, talking about horror games. Now, I'm going to bring up that I don't actually know a whole lot of horror games, so please give me a few suggestions in the comments. So, let's talk about Call of Cthulhu. It's an old game with 7 separate editions, though first edition seems to be compatible with the latest one. This system was created by Chaosium Inc. This company will license out their game to many other companies, including to, and don't quote me on this, as I'm pulling from memory, several video game developers, a couple TV shows, and Haster knows how many different tabletop RPG companies. Maybe us at Conqueror Creations will be blessed someday. Now, how this game works is different than any other game I've talked about on this channel, and actually is one of my favorites because it actually works for my bad luck. This game uses a percentile system. Essentially, and keep in mind I'm simplifying this a lot, you add your skill with a characteristic to decide your percentage goal. You then roll a percentile set of dice, either 2d10 or 1d100, your choice. When you roll it, you compare what you rolled to the number mentioned before, and you make sure you rolled below that number. Below, not over. So, my terrible luck is great in this case. Now, of course, you need books. This game has about 6 books, kind of? It's an odd thing to count, as I'm not sure what you can count without getting my hands on the books. But you really only need 2. The Keeper Rulebook, which is essentially your Game Master's Guide, and the Investigator Handbook, which is essentially your Player's Handbook. These 2 books are not easy to get through, honestly. I found them fun myself, admittedly. And I'm probably the only one who thought so. The book is filled with stories. Some official works by Lovecraft, some stories involving the setting in the books. Yes, it's settings with an S at the end. Normally I'd go through character creation at this point, but it's insanely difficult to do that because character creation is insanely difficult to follow. Each attribute and each skill follows its own mathematics and dice rolls, but there's also set options, which I actually recommend for new players. Now, if you have the Investigator Handbook, keep in mind wording can be hit and miss. It flips around sometimes, changing between the word investigator and character for your player characters, while having a lot of overlap between characteristics, sometimes called attributes. Now, characteristics are essentially your ability scores. Call of Cthulhu has a different mathematical equation for each one, some of which are odd, but each is very important. Let's go over them. Strength is the first, with a roll of 3d6, then multiply by 5. This is your lifting weight and your ability to grip on, but getting to 0 means you can no longer pick yourself up out of bed. Constitution is the same equation, 3d6 times 5. If you're playing D&D of any edition, you know what this is. Your health, you're resistant to poisons and such. Pretty basic, though. This book states that if this number ever hits 0, you just straight up die, so be careful with it. You could theoretically start with 15. Size is the next characteristic. 2d6 plus 6, then multiply by 5. If being on the website formerly known as Twitter has taught me anything, the wording is very important, as a huge portion of y'all can't remember how the order of operations works. Size is essentially how easy it is to hide or fit through small areas, somehow making this better to be smaller. With larger size, though, it can give bonuses to your health and damage bonus on certain weapons. So, both big and small are great options. But keep in mind, if you're too small, there's a chance you can literally disappear into the ether. Dexterity's equation is the one we've used most, 3d6 times 5. Dexterity, like in D&D, is your ability to move fast, bend around as needed. Those with a high dexterity will go first in combat, though combat admittedly is rare in this game. No dexterity, though, can lead you to literally slapping yourself and being unable to control your own body movements. Appearance is the next one, which I do not lack at all. I am a fine-ass midget. Same equation, 3d6 times 5. This characteristic is essentially your first impressions. Not exactly charisma, as that's a lot different. But an average person may look at a high appearance character and be willing to answer anything, while a near monster or cult member may be turned away by your looks. 0 will turn everyone away though, including the outer gods. The only one maybe wanting to deal with you is a beast once you're already rotting. Now we go to intelligence. This one is 2d6 plus 6, then multiply by 5. This is your ability to figure things out and remember crap and solve puzzles, among other things too. Now, this ability has other things too, including adding to your personal interest skills, which we'll go into in a moment. Intelligence is probably the most important of all characteristics, unless you're Old Man Henderson. That's a story right there. Power is another 3d6 times 5 ability. Believe it or not, is more your understanding and resistance to magic, or arcane, given the Lovecraftian setting. With no power, you're essentially a mindless zombie. But this ability also ties with sanity, too. A lot of these abilities tie to other things. Next is education, which is another 2d6, then times 5. 2d6 plus 6, then multiply by 5. This is not to be confused with intelligence, which is essentially your on-the-fly figuring out, while education is your ability to hold on to information and learn new information. This characteristic goes into the occupation skills, and this chapter about it actually talks about what education level is equivalent to. But that's a lot of crap that I ain't got the time to talk about. Finally, kind of, is luck, which is like most of those before, 3d6 times 5. This is more of a vague thing, but luck can really help you out in certain situations. Essentially, if bad shit happens, you can ask to make a luck roll and maybe get out of the jam. Now we get into age, which doesn't have an equation, but E is important to choose this. Different ranges have different bonuses and negatives to certain characteristics. You're assumed to be between the ages of 15 to 90, which is a wide range. Depending on the range, you can grow or decrease, mostly decrease, scores in size, strength, constitution, education, dexterity, and appearance. Next page in the book goes over the characteristics and what each one means and what each number means. It gives a name for each one too, including size being from the baby to Elephant Man, basically. Now, there's still a whole lot I haven't talked about just with character creation. So, I'm going to do this in a 2-parter video. Maybe more, but I doubt more. I'm not going to give it a review score just yet, because we haven't even gone over but like a third, maybe half of the crap. That's all I really got for now. Like I said, part 2 will be out next week, so now I gotta go work on Warhammer Wednesday and fill out a quarterly report. Yay, taxes! So, shove off.